Disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy who's gotten lucky investing before. Past performance does not guarantee future results. I am just as good at losing money as I can make it. None of what you're about to see is financial advice. And into our video. Today I want to discuss with you about 5 stocks that I have picked out through the last 10 years that I think right now we should really take a look at. What happened to them? What would you have seen? And what you could have avoided investing into them. Just some fundamental analysis of these stocks. 2 of them are losers. 3 of them are, you would have been in a very good spot if you had bought them. And the first stock I want to talk to you with you about is Intel, in the prospect of investing in Intel in 2021. So if you can bring yourself back to 2021, the global chip shortage, from COVID-19, everyone was crazy about getting chips. Car manufacturers could not get chips. And of course, my dog wants to wait until I'm recording to say that it's his playtime. COVID-19 happened. Everyone couldn't get chips. China wasn't making microchips, semiconductors. And then on top of that, Intel's data center segment experienced a 20% year-over-year revenue decline, while most other chip makers, AMD, NVIDIA, and Texas Instruments, weren't seeing that huge of a revenue decline. Intel's was a little bit more significant. And then the guidance that Intel gave out was less than optimistic. Their management projected quarter 2 sales of approximately $18.9 billion. On top of all of this, they have increased their debt to $33 billion. And they had $22 billion cash on hand. Meanwhile, they're making $18.9 billion. They're projected $18.9 billion for Q2. And if we look at their revenue on top, that's their 9-year revenue chart. Top is trailing 12 months. Bottom is quarterly earnings. 2009, they were earning $35 billion a year, and in 2020, December 30th, 2020, they recorded $77 billion trailing 12 months. And then I have the stock price chart below that. They're trading about $55 on March 1st. 2021. So you could look at this and you could say Intel's a buy. They're and specifically down in buying at that $45 price range towards the end of 2020, prior to 2021. You could have said Intel looks amazing. Intel, they're going to recover and they're going to keep growing. And you wouldn't be wrong. I included this little spike here on this chart. You would not be wrong to say, hey, I think I'm going to buy Intel, if you only held it for 3 months. And I will show you the chart today on the next slide. But keep in mind, Intel at the same time was having serious issues with chips shorting out, chips corroding internally. Their products were not as good. There were various issues with the manufacturing process. And just recently, they announced that they're no longer going to be making they're trying to phase out of making their own chips. They're not going to manufacture their own. They're just going to design and sell. Anyway, it's important that you do this because it does relate to some things going on today with some of the chip manufacturers. You know, their quality control is not as good and things like that. But with that being said, you can see their revenue is holding steady at 20 billion a quarter, and they're making steadily over $70 billion in revenue, and all they have to do is keep up that revenue growth, and they should, rocket back to $65-$70 and continue in their slow growth as they have in the past here with that low chart. The previous 7 years shown, 6 years, 7 years shown on the chart below. However, they have not. Their revenue sank because their products were not as good and people stopped buying them. Today, Amazon just did a study about a month ago. AMD has 80% of all chips sold on Amazon. 80% to 20% of Intel's sales. So you can see significantly that impacted Intel's sales. They're now down to a sub $20 stock, and they're falling apart. They just fired their CEO of a year and a half or something. They're trying to find a new CEO. They're getting into this new lower end graphics card lineup, and they're just barely holding on to their business solutions market with Dell and HP, and that seems to be going away. It seems like AMD is going to be taking that over. So with that being said, you have to go back and look at what you could have seen, and I think had Intel's products stayed excellent, had they paid off some of that debt too. That's a lot of debt even though they are bringing in a lot of money, they're not holding enough cash on hand for that amount of debt. And well, I don't know, maybe I'm overstating the debt a little bit, but this is one of the things. I think the big thing you could have seen is that Intel's some of the reviews of their product were going down in quality, and it's good to look back on these sorts of things, because there were some people buying Intel in 2021 and 2020 saying that Intel's gonna recover and make a full recovery, and it didn't. And the next stock I'm going to look at and I want to review is Under Armour, and specifically the span of in 2016, because you could have looked at Under Armour and said, hey, this was an awesome buy. At the time, you could have said, hey, this is an awesome buy. And in quarter 3 of 2016, Under Armour revised its growth expectations, saying revenue increases in the low 20%. And then again, you go back and you read reviews on the Curry 3 basketball shoe. they were not selling. You could have gone into an Under Armour store, an Under Armour, what do they call those when it's under an Under Armour outlet store is the word I'm looking for. You could have gone there and you could have gone to the clearance section and a Curry 3 shoe was launched at like $90. You could have gone there and gotten a set of shoes for about $22, I believe. I know because I bought a pair in 2016. And they were not, because they were not selling. They underperformed expectations, and overall, the U.S. athletic apparel market was reduced in demand. On top of that, Under Armour had a triple-digit PE ratio. For going on 3 years, it was over 100 P price to earnings to buy Under Armour shares. Then on top of that, they two and a half x'd their debt. I think their debt in 2014 was like I actually don't remember the number, but their debt from 2014 to 2015 they almost tripled their debt, and they reduced their cash on hand. Like they had a quarter of cash on hand in 2015 as they did in 2014. And so just seeing that, if you saw that on the balance sheet, I mean, if you're buying into a stock with the triple digit PE ratio, you're taking a lot of risk. I don't care what the rest of the market is. That is a bubble. And I mean, there's three things that are like huge red flags to sell Under Armour in 2016. And this is the chart. So you can see solid revenue growth, right? For the trailing 5 years. However, when you're looking at revenue growth and you're investing in a stock, you have to consider, and my biggest takeaway from doing this video is you have to consider that there needs to be a reason for revenue to grow for the next year, right? So you look at Intel, their revenue was, at an all-time high, and what reason would it grow in 2022? Now, hindsight is 2020. I can tell you everything that's happened. I can't tell you everything that's going to happen, right? But they didn't have any new markets. They didn't have any sort of new technology they were coming out with. They were just doing the same thing, and especially in the technology space. And you're looking at growth stocks, because Under Armour is priced at a growth stock. With that high of a PE ratio, you need a reason for revenue to grow next year. And there wasn't any sort of Walmart starting to sell Under Armour. That would be a good reason to buy Under Armour in this drawdown. There was anything like that. There was no reason for them to make more revenue in the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years, and it showed right here. This is the last 13 years of Under Armour stock price on the top, and on the bottom is the revenue, and you cannot see any of that. Sorry. On the top there is the stock price of Under Armour, and on the bottom there is the revenue for Under Armour. And you can see in 2016 they made $4.83 billion of revenue, and just in 2024 they made 5.7. That doesn't even beat inflation as far as I'm concerned, right? So, and their stock price reflects that today. I mean, they're trading, so this price on top is not today's price. I think they're trading like under $10, and they've been trading under $10 for about a year and a half. So, with that being said, consider that when you make future stock purchases and you pick stocks in the future to buy. Now, on to the next company is Micron. Stock ticker MU, and you could have bought this in 2016 had you had the opportunity. Now, let's look at the company itself before we talk about financials, stock price, things like that. So the reason for their drawdown was they have an oversupply of DRAM and the falling prices in the DRAM and NAND chip market. Micron is the biggest manufacturer in the world of DRAM and NAND chips. Samsung, their competitor, their biggest competitor, was actively purchasing equipment to manufacture DRAM chips. Again, that is pretty scary when you're considering investing in Micron. Historically, Micron had a very low PE ratio, the trailing 5 years up to 2016 and around the time I'm talking about. And also on top of that, fall in global PC sales. Now, again, hindsight is 2020. 2016, consider how many PCs were getting sold, right? And I mean, do people stop buying new PCs? Sometimes what happens is technology takes such a huge leap that, we're good for 5 years. We don't need a new laptop for another 5-7 years. Sometimes they release PC technology and, in 2 years you need, it's like it won't run the new version of Windows. It won't, And so in 2016, Micron had kind of the perfect storm of, all of the technology. The last version of DRAM was such a jump. I think this was around the time DDR4 was kind of should have been aging out, but DDR4 computer manufacturers really held on to using DDR4 in new PC builds, and old PCs stuck around for a while because there was no upgrade path really. So just a look into the revenue. On top is the revenue. You can see it's starting to fall. They started selling their RAM for cheaper prices. They weren't growing revenue as they should have been, and you have a significant drawdown on the stock price from a high of in 2015 of 35 down to below $15. Is this stock a buy? Well, I mean, there's got to be a reason for it to go up. Is there a good, and it's got to be a good reason too. Is there a good reason for Micron Technologies to go up in value? I mean, hindsight is 2020, but I would have said, yeah, DDR5 is going to come out eventually. People are, and not to mention, server applications as well. But the new version of DRAM is going to come out. PC builders are going to look for a source of that, and what you had was exactly that, right? And you can see this is I don't have the date on the revenue, but this is that decline in 2016, and then this is the return to growth in up until 2018. So, I mean, this is a classic cycle stock, right? Micron is always, drawing down, going back up, and drawing down, going back up. But in 2016, you kind of had a perfect storm where their revenue was at an all-time low. And, if you'd have bought, I mean, it went down to $10, which is crazy. I think now Micron is going through a drawdown cycle in 2025 today, but just 6 months ago, I think Micron was trading for about $110. So, Micron, history is one to keep in mind of. Now, the next stock is one that I scored on. Pretty awesome stock that I saw personally is Nvidia. The potential for buying it in around that 2022-2023 time frame. And if you could take yourself back to around COVID time, post-COVID, again, microchips were very difficult to get your hands on, and and cryptocurrencies were going crazy. It was super profitable to buy a bunch of GPUs and run cryptocurrency mines in a shed in your backyard, right? Because the cost of a crypto was more than the cost to make a crypto in energy costs, right? So people were doing that like crazy. They were buying GPUs like crazy. And then when in 2023, the cost of cryptocurrency went down and it became unprofitable, and then you had a flood in the market of graphics cards, and you saw Nvidia's revenue go down because no one's buying graphics. Everyone's buying secondhand graphics cards. And then on top of that, they launched the 40 series GPUs. They struggled to keep them on the shelf because of supply issues. They could not get the actual chips. Now, that's the bearish case on Nvidia in that time frame. The bullish, Tesla self-driving cars was a hot thing. People wanted a autopilot Tesla around that time, and they were all running off of Nvidia GPUs. Tesla started selling their cars significantly cheaper, and which caused a lot more people to own Teslas. Now that's where, when I bought Nvidia, that's where I was looking, right? But I knew that they had this new market of data center GPU. We know now that the data center GPU is like the big thing. That's the big money maker in 2024, and potentially more so in 2025. Now, I remember when I bought it, I was like, that's cool. That could take off, could be huge potential. I was more concerned with Nvidia GPUs going into Tesla cars, and people are buying Teslas like crazy. Anyway, when we go to the charts here and how it worked out, this is the drawdown that you saw. This is 2021, right here, early 2021. They're kicking butt, and then draw down all of 2022. And right about in 2023, right before 2023, you could look at this chart and go, okay, Tesla. Now this is before a split. So this is a $300 stock at the peak, and then it drew down to below $150. You got to ask yourself, is it a buy? What and from making this video, the lesson learned here is there's got to be a reason for it to go back up. I guess that's the whole point of this video, is when you buy a stock and you're looking at it, and there's got to be a reason other than it's going to go back up because it's already been there. Well, Intel was already there, right? And it didn't work out for them. Under Armour was up there. It's not working out for them. And there are hundreds of stocks that you can go and look at where they drew down and they went back up, but you can't really find the ones that drew down and went out of business, because all that, it's hard to find data on that on the internet, because no one cares about the data sheets of Big Lots in 2004. No one cares about the financial statements of Blockbuster in 2000. Everyone cares about you can't really find too much information on that. So with that being said, here is the result of Nvidia. This is their dip they took back in 2020, 2023, in 2022 into 2023, and you can see if you'd have bought it at that $10 price point, if you'd have bought at that $12, $13 price point, you would have a $140 stock. That's like a 10x right there, right? So good thing to keep in mind. That's how you pick. That's how what I look for in stocks when I purchase them. Spotify in 2023 is the next stock I want to talk about. Now, again, this is kind of like Under Armour. I miss this stock. I miss this investment, but still can learn from it. Revenue stayed increasing through the year. However, investor sentiment was down because Spotify came out and said there was a declining percentage of users subscribed to premium. Now, what they didn't tell you is that the overall number of subscribers was up and was steadily increasing. What they told you was that there was a decline in the percentage of users listening to Spotify were subscribed to premium. And then on top of that was uncertainty with big podcasting investment. Of course, you had the Joe Rogan signing, and that was all controversial, and any uncertainty investors are just going to dip out of. So anyway, you could have bought Spotify in going into 2023 at about $70 something. I don't remember the exact price, but and then on the right you can see that revenue is steadily increasing. Year over year, quarterly growth was up, and let's go to today's results. Yeah, and this is my little statement I put here. If you bought Spotify at $94.60, you would have a 6.2x return today. That podcasting investment paid off. They had a lot of developments in their app. I use Spotify. I like it. Their AI DJ is pretty awesome. They have this new super extra special shuffle mode. That's pretty awesome. I use it when I'm driving the car all the time. It takes all the music that you have saved on your list and it goes, oh, hey, you'll also like this song. And then most of the time it's like, oh, I knew that song. I just, didn't save it on my phone for some reason. And that is, I don't think there's any other app that has that out there. So, that resulted with huge revenue increases. And, the moral of the story is, any stock is rarely ever truly finished, as we've seen with these examples. Even well-known companies in the S&P 500 can face substantial price declines. This underscores the inherent risks involved with investing and highlights the importance of thorough due diligence when you are investing in stocks. Don't just buy a stock because it's been up there. It's got to have a reason to go back up. Understanding a company's fundamentals, their balance sheet, their debt to cash ratio, their asset to market cap ratio is pretty important. Their industry landscape, stay within your circle of competence too. I will happily miss a investment of some complex tech, fintech thing, because if something doesn't excite me and I can't study it to the fullest degree, I will be happy losing out on that explosive growth in a sector of the market. I'd much rather put my money into sectors that I can understand, things like computer tech and clothing apparel and things like that. Something I can get the whole nitty gritty on and ask, and maybe I don't know it, but maybe I know quite a few people that do know it, and they can explain to me why X company is they're not gonna stick around for much longer because their management's going out, and that's important too. And hopefully these stories provided some food for thought as you navigate the coming market in 2025 and 2026. Remember to do your own research and understand the risks involved before investing. Thank you for tuning in, and have fun earning or losing money, whatever you do. Subscribe, comment. Thank you.